Yeah, just random guess and error checks. Yeah, and one of the things is like he just gets like arbitrary numbers or random studies and random surveys, and he uses that for like his you know his basis for some kind of like findings. I'm like, where did the data come from? How did you like you know weight the how do you weight the data so it's like measured and aggregated correctly and stuff like that? And how does it apply? And so like the problem is that like all this thing is like taken in as like the golden standard, but like he's just like a liberal like bullshitter that just like make shit up. Maybe he has good intentions, but I think he's just like a sleazy salesman who's just like selling random shit without any like validity in his work. He has like zero framework of understanding of you know um any quantifiable stuff, right? Zero standardization across any context. Is he makes like random connections and relevance. He's like, oh yeah, I solved education. Like, okay, he doesn't know anything. But the problem is that now, like, other, that trickles down to institutions and like schools and admins where they like tally up random variables and then they're like, oh yeah, we made this progress because we went from 9 out of 10 to 9.2 out of 10, and that's a 20% increase. Now like we're way better, but they don't account for like very complex nuances. For example, one of the things was that like they created this like very simple formula and how like if you use more of this software, your test scores are going to increase. But they didn't. They negated any negative progress. So if a student made worse progress, they negate it as zero, no matter how poorly they reduce their score. Like if they had negative 50 points, they would just negate it as zero, which completely skews the data, which they didn't even understand. Like they didn't understand the significance when I was mentioning to them. Like, and two, the more important thing was that they did not negate a constant variable. For example, like them going from a fourth grader to fifth grader is a year time frame, right? Where like you're expected to learn in the classroom, and that has like a constant variable of growth. Let's just say it's like N15. Let's just say 15 as a point that like you're expected to grow as a student in the classroom. And if you don't remove that, like minus N15, and let's say that's just a variable, right? You are lumping any progress with it. So, for example, like let's just say um, the overall growth was like 15. So if you have N15 or like a constant variable, right, removed, you're going to assume that there was net zero growth. But let's just say this student did 30, right? Then that means they grew beyond the constant variable, which that constant variable can be easily like, you know, created by like getting a sample size of like if you guys have if the school has like previous data, right? They just like get an average and they get a standard deviation, and you're like, hey, it's 10 with the standard deviation of 2, so 10 plus minus 2. Um, so let's just change it to that 10 plus minus 2. Um, and if a student scores like 20, like they have gained more using the software beyond the constant variable of being in school and just learning as a student with school material. But let's just say they got like a 4. That's 10 points. If you negate the 10, right? That's 6 points around. That's they did not grow. They did not meet to the expectations. Meaning, like they didn't. meet their expectations. But there's some schools would take that and be like, oh, it's +4. They learned, wow, we did a great job. And then the worst part is they would take that data and be like, the student grew, yes. And then they would take that as a data point, and they're like, oh, they grew, which is firstly skewed, misconstrued, and categorically wrong. And then they like make a derivative of that data. So like instead of the actual raw data, they're like, oh yeah, they grew, which is wrong, right? And then they tally that up, and then they're like, hey, these percentage of students grew. Yes, we improved from 90% to 92%. That's a like a 2 point something percent growth. Yes, we did a good job. Um, oh my god, it's so stupid. Um, it's mind blowing how stupid some of the people are, or the average people in the education system are. And yeah, I just wanted to say all that. Okay, so going back to like what I was doing and what I did. So the actual impact kind of like give you the like the to quantify, my work is that like a lot of these students who are performing at this level, like I had one of the craziest growth because like teachers we get like the standardized testing scores, and my scores, like the average growth is like blah blah, blah 100% growth, yay, like good job. I had average students 800, 900, 1,000% growth because they went from kindergarten level to like eighth grade, ninth grade level. So yeah, like 8 grade levels. So yeah, it's not, it's just strategy and how you frame. A lot of these students, they know how to, they understand these nuanced things like what is the theme, what is the author's intent, but they just don't know how to articulate it and what is important to say. Sometimes I like a lot of the times I was telling my students like, you have to say this part. I know it's very obvious. You sound stupid mentioning it, but like that's what they want you to say. That's what they expect you to, write down because it testifies that you understand, you know, you understand what's going on. Another thing is like, oh my gosh. Another thing is that like previous teachers have been teaching them wrong things, and a lot of the times I have to tell them like forget what the fourth grade teacher told you, forget what your first grade teacher told you, because a lot of the teachers would tell you like, oh, write as much as you can, write like 9 paragraphs, like 35 paragraphs, I don't know, textual evidence, make sure it's like 50 sentences long, which is so stupid because the less you quote, the smarter you sound, the more you understand, the more you have control of your writing. And I would tell them like, hey, pick a couple words that you understand and be like, hey, this is what they're trying to say. I want to build upon this. This is my evidence. I want to build upon this and put my reasoning and why this is significant. Versus like you freaking take 4 sentences and you're like, hey, this is my evidence that proves my point, which is so stupid. And that's what they teach the kids. Um, yeah. So what does this all mean? Language isn't just words. It's like how we shape reality. It's how we take value, face value. So native speakers who can't articulate their own ideas and thoughts and build upon their shaky ideas with the lack of vocabulary to distinguish between certain emotions and ideas and concepts. Um, I think limits and pretty much cuts a person's capacity. And I think that's very important. I think precision is very important. I think articulation is very important. And especially in a world where it's AI driven, um, AI, the reason why AI, I think, has made very little advancements and how there's, hallucination and how AI makes a lot of errors is because, human language is so faulty and like we make like our words, the meaning of a word has so much deviation between contexts. And that's because we've lacked the ability to like utilize words. I think clear communication is very, very important. And as an immigrant, I think it taught me that language is a very important tool that you need to master.